Welcome to the Heroic Voice. I am here with John Morrow, the publisher of the cleverly named TwoMorrows Publishing, and we are here to talk about the state of the publishing industry, in particular, whatever the heck projects TwoMorrow has going other than the stuff that everybody already knows about. This is the Heroic Voice, where I talk to comic book creators and other interesting people on a variety of subjects. I am Dennis Maloney, publisher of the Heroic Multiverse, where we feature good girl and bad girl artwork, super babes, and all kinds of Silver Agey style stories. So, John, hello. It is good to see you. It's been quite a while.
It has, Dennis, but it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking me on.
Well, thank you for coming. What would you like to talk about first?
Oh, I don't know, the geopolitical status of Earth right now.
Sure,
No,
if you
yeah,
want
let's go
to,
to
we could
that.
go into that. I
That's probably
mean,
a little too
things are
depressing right now.
changing. There's a whole populist movement both in the Americas and in Europe as a backlash to the elitism that's been taking over the world by storm for the last 3 or 4 decades. But that's not what I want to talk about.
I'm with you on that. Let's save that for another podcast.
Alrighty. So you mentioned before we came on that you just got something, just received a shipment.
We did. Seven magazines all went to press at once. That's a lot for us to do all at the same time. But unfortunately, it was necessitated by Diamond Comic Distributors filing for bankruptcy back in January. That kind of threw us and every other publisher in the industry for a loop, just about. So we were one of the fortunate ones that were able to secure a new distributor when Diamond filed bankruptcy. Our new distributor is Lunar,
Mhm.
and things have been going great with them so far. Very pleased, but it necessitated canceling all the orders with Diamond that we had for products we'd already solicited, and then wait until we could get them resolicited through Lunar and get new orders in. So we had about a 4 month delay in there with just no new products shipping at all, and they've all kind of combined here at one time to come in. We just got this big shipment in. We're going to be working like overtime for the next few weeks, getting everything all in the mail. But and then over the next couple of months, we'll be seeing our bi-monthly magazines will be coming out monthly, more or less, as we sort of get caught up from that 4 month lag that we had between distributors. So it's kind of a tricky situation for a lot of small publishers right now. We're one of the
Yes, it
really
is.
fortunate ones.
Yeah.
So
We fortunately were in a situation where we never had, well, we haven't had dealings with Diamond in a long time.
mm.
So their bankruptcy had basically no impact on us.
Oh,
Um,
good for you.
yeah.
Yeah, it had a
I
big
would,
impact on us.
I would
Unfortunately,
be
they
interested in talking, for the Heroic Voice to someone at Lunar. Could you send a word out to them that I'm interested?
certainly I can put you
I
in touch
would,
with someone.
I would appreciate that. It would be good to get their take on the evolving situation in comic
Well,
book distribution.
they're going through some changes right now as well as they're scaling up to deal with all these new clients, new publishers they got coming on, not just us, but several others.
That's
So
actually, from an economist point of view, that would be specifically why I'd be interested in talking to them, because I don't know how familiar you are with how small businesses work, but one of the
just my
inflection
own.
points, the inflection points for small businesses have to do with unforeseen expansion, right? The question is, can they finance that? And I would be curious to talk to them specifically about that economic side of that, because that's where businesses fail, right? Businesses fail at sudden growth as well as sudden decline, um, for reasons that most people won't be familiar with. But I'd love
Right.
to have that talk and maybe make some people familiar with them.
Well, I'm kind of in touch with what you just said because this bankruptcy did that to us. It caused us to stop production for a while and then had to ramp up dramatically all at once, getting all these publications together. Normally, we would send, three, maybe four publications to press at a time. We basically had to double that. That means financing the printing bills, the freight bills for all of that while we're waiting on the lag time to get paid for all that. So yeah, it's
Your cash flow was significantly
challenge.
disrupted. Right?
It was, and plus Diamond owes us many, many tens of thousands of dollars for stuff, and we'll probably never see a dime of it. It's looking like right now. So we've got to compensate for that. Thankfully, our very, very loyal readership answered my plea in January and ordered tons and tons of stuff from our website to kind of as kind of really kept us afloat the last 4 months.
That's great. That's great. Should I ask which specific 7 books you received?
Oh, sure. Well, it's also the newest issue of all of our magazines. So Jack Kirby Collector, Alter Ego, Back Issue, Comic Book Creator, our new horror magazine, Cryptology, Retro Fan, and our Lego magazine, Brick Journal. So we've got the latest issues of those, and they're all,
They're all
um,
out.
oh, they're all going to be driving us crazy for the next 3 or 4 weeks, but in a good way. So.
That's great. So that's a new one. You haven't, you said there's a new one that you haven't
Yes,
just started.
Cryptology. It's a horror magazine, but not like slasher film horror. More like, Universal Monsters, the Munsters, Addams Family, all Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, all the fun stuff that we grew up with as kids. It's sort of an offshoot of Retro Fan, which is all about retro pop culture that we grew up, all different genres. But we were doing every year we had an annual Halloween issue of Retro Fan that focused on things like, Dark Shadows or Elvira, Svengoolie, things like that. And those were very popular issues. That's kind of what inspired me to go ahead and branch off into a new magazine. I'd long wanted to cover horror because, I mean, it's not just horror magazines and horror movies, but horror comics. It goes so far beyond just EC comics.
Mhm.
Horror was one of the major genres
Yeah, in the
for
1950s, it
two decades.
was crime and horror. Those are the,
Yeah, and well, even in the 60s, there was a lot. And so we've got so much material to cover there that hasn't been covered in, Alter Ego or Back Issue. And
absolutely right.
it's a good
Uh,
mix of stuff, a lot of fun in that magazine.
the only thing I can think of off the top of my head that would have been comparable to that would be Forey Ackerman's famous Monsters of Filmland book, which isn't quite the same thing, right? Because you're dealing
Not the
with,
same, but yeah, it's got the same fun flavor. We have a horror host named the Cryptologist, and Peter Normanton is the editor of that. He edited a horror zine called From the Tomb. He lives in the UK and did that for many, many years. And I was a big fan of that particular fanzine. And we did 3 collections well, 2 collections of that, and then one third collection that was new material that had never been published for that. And the success of those kind of encouraged me that yes, we could actually make a go of a ongoing horror magazine with Peter as the editor, and he's doing a fantastic job so far.
well, I wish you good luck with that.
Thank you.
We touched on that crime horror genre in that 5th issue of Alter Ego.
Oh yes, yes.
Roy wanted to, move along from the heroes of the 40s and those first 4 issues to that 5th issue, which was, crime and horror.
Mhm.
We've got a funny animals issue coming up, a romance issue, and I've got a cough.
It
So
happens.
yeah, it's the first time I think that's happened in any of these interviews. So what else is on the table? I mean, you've got 7 magazines going. That seems like a full plate to me.
Well, we generally do half dozen or more books a year. We had to curtail our plans for the second half of this year because of the bankruptcy and as far as book releases go. So we're only releasing 4 books this year, and we're kind of because of the bankruptcy, we're spreading them out across the whole year as opposed to we normally do 3 in the first half of the year, but so now it's going to be 4 for this year. So we've got our Marshall Rogers biography, which is near and dear to my heart. I've always been a huge fan of his work. That's on the next shipment that will be coming in a month from now, along with 6 other magazines. So that's going to be a very busy month for us in June as well. But then we've got a book on the history of movie comic books based on
Hmm.
movies. And that's a very niche audience for that, but it's one that is historically, I think, very important.
It's
It's
very
sort of a
important.
sequel. Yeah, it's a sequel to one we did about TV comics based on TV shows. So, and then we've got a new book by Mark Voger, Futuristic, which is all about the whole space age retro pop culture craze that came in the 50s and the 60s, with ray guns and robots and rocket ships and Forbidden Planet and Robbie the Robot, Lost in Space, all of that stuff. And the comics related on that as well, Strange Adventures, all of Julie Schwartz's sci-fi stuff. So it's a really fun book. And Mark Voger's books are always a blast. He's such a good designer as well as writer. And then our other one is we've got an issue of Comic Book Creator, which is actually double sizing. It'll serve as a book. It's a retrospective on Dave Stevens. That one will be debuting at Comic-Con this year with advanced copies, but it'll actually ship in October. So, and then the final book for this year is, I guess that's 5 actually. The first comics companion, which you remember first comics from the 1980s,
Yes.
um, with Mike Grell and Howard Chaykin and all those great artists working for there. And it's John B. Cook doing my good buddy doing a great retrospective, along with Richard Arndt working on that together. And just, if you've seen a specific comics companion, if you saw his Charlton companion, which just blew people away, this is the same vein as that, just so exhaustively researched and covering that company. So, but yeah, we've got yeah, fingers crossed. Early next year, we will finally see our Jim Aparo biography, which is one that we first announced, I'm embarrassed to say, in 2006, and it was plagued with one delay after another for various reasons I won't go into, but a lot of personal reasons with authors. Mr. Aparo passed away like 2 months after we signed the agreement to do it. And it is so near completion. I'm confident enough to talk about it now. So.
19 years in the making.
Well, yeah, I think that's a record for us. Our other one, we did a book on Lou Scheimer and filmation, that Andy Mangels wrote, which is a fabulous book. But that was another one. I think that didn't quite go 19 years. I think it went about 14 years from the time we announced it until it was finally released. But fans just ate it up. We did three printings on that one. And we're even considering maybe putting that one back in print at some point. So,
You guys do
um,
good work.
well,
I
thanks.
really,
Sometimes it just takes a
yeah.
lot longer than you think. Those are excessive examples, but other than that, we're pretty good on staying on schedule, though. I would say I'm happy with our track record. So
Is it time for a heroic publishing retrospective?
you guys gotta wait just a little bit longer, I think. We got a couple others in the hopper first, but you may be a prime candidate for that. So stay tuned.
Okay,
We're gonna
if
get
I'm still
three.
alive when you decide you want to do it, let me
Well,
know.
that's the other problem, we're all getting a little older. We got to get this stuff documented for the historical record as soon as we can. So,
Yeah, I had this conversation back in the early 80s, and it was in an Atlanta Fantasy Fair, right? And I pointed out to Dave Kraft and to a couple of other people who were there that, the first generation of comic book people was starting to pass away back in the 1980s. If you didn't get their stories down now, you wouldn't be able to get them down. And sadly, we lost a lot of people that we never got those stories down for. So,
well,
yeah,
we've done our best, and people like Jim Amish, for instance, for gosh, 10, 12 years straight, every issue of Alter Ego had a feature on some forgotten golden age artist, people I'd never heard of, most people had never heard of, but now we have, because Jim documented them so well and Roy presented it so well in the publication. And I'm so proud of that. And I'm so proud that Alter Ego not only came out then, but it exists indefinitely with digital versions of even the old sold out issues. People can still track that stuff down and use it for research. And I mean, that's important to me, to make sure that we're really compiling an as accurate as possible, but comprehensive historical record of comics history. Because invariably we're going to miss some people, but we're doing our best, and we got some hardworking people that work with us, and I'm just so blessed to get to do this for a living.
let's do a
Um,
plug. Where can people find these?
Oh, www.twomorrows.com, but that's spelled TWOMORROWS.com. So we are two Morrows. My wife and I are partners in the company. And our last name is Morrow. So there are two of us, and that's where the
As I
name came
said,
from.
very cleverly named.
Thank you.
Social media.
Oh wow! Well, we're on Facebook, and I can't spell off the top of my head. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Blue Sky. We have our own blog, which I keep things updated on. But the best source for material is just go to our website, and you can download a free catalog in digital form. It's interactive, so you just click on any picture you see of a cover, and it'll take you right to our website where to order that particular item. So it makes it real simple to do. We use a site called issuu.com, ISSUU, to prepare digital previews of every one of our publications. So you can kind of click on any of our things and just preview them, see a good, even up to a quarter of an issue to see what's going on in there and see if it's something that you're interested in. So, but it's nice that we have digital editions of almost everything we publish. Everything we have the rights to do digitally, we've produced a digital edition for. So,
Very good.
um, technology is wonderful sometimes,
It
sometimes
is.
not, but
And it
Yeah.
changes all the time. I mean, just during the time that I've been publishing, the economics have changed like four times on
Oh, yes.
everything. Hey, let's
Yeah.
talk about that for a second. I mean, just in the last 10 years, physically printing comic books or comic book related material has changed a lot. From your perspective, let's say from, 2015 to 2025, what's changed?
In the last 10, it hasn't been as dramatic as probably the previous 10 were for
Let's go
us.
back then to 20 years ago.
Okay, well, I'll even go back to like 90, I graduated from design school in 1986.
Hmm.
We did not touch a single computer by the time I had graduated, and my wife had as well. Our first computer experience we had to figure out on our own. Oh, what's this Macintosh thing? Let's get one of those and figure out how to use it. Of course, within a year after we graduated, the art schools were all getting computers, but we had to learn on our own. But I think we benefited from that in a lot of ways. We didn't know all the shortcuts that you have today. We had to do it old school, manually pasting up mechanical boards, hand kerning typesetting galleys with an X-Acto knife and wax or spray mount.
Exactly what the sort of thing I did when I was editing the newspaper at Caltech,
There
right?
you go. See, and
Back in the mid 70s.
we learn the hard way, and I think it's a whole different way of learning design when you had to do that way versus sort of, I don't want to exactly say mindlessly, but it's a lot simpler to just kind of zone out on your computer and move things around and stuff. And sometimes you don't have to give as much thought to design, and I think that's really benefited us. And a lot of the people we work with, a lot of our designers also learned old school before they learned the computer. So I
Kerning,
just
ligatures,
oh
and
yeah,
all the
absolutely.
stuff that people don't even know about these days.
Absolutely. And we can't use everything we learned in our advertising and graphic design stuff in our publications. We had clients that would let us do foil stamping and embossing and laser engraving and things like that on annual reports and stuff we designed for them. Our customers might like to see that, but I don't think they want to pay the cover price that that would involve. So, but we work on a pretty tight schedule, keeping our publications come out regularly. But the main thing we've seen over the last, we've been in business 30 plus years now, was going from, I started the Jack Kirby Collector. That was my first publication, 16 pages, hand Xeroxed, feeding dimes into a copier at a drugstore, and then hand stapling them, just 100 copies at a time. From there, I did my first color cover for the eighth issue of the Jack Kirby Collector, but the inside was still black and white. But that was our first commercial printing that went through comic stores. From there, we branched out to other magazines, but it was all still black and white interiors. And we were printing mostly in Canada back then because it was just the only way we could
Cheaper.
afford to.
Yeah.
That changed with the advent of printing overseas. Right now, we're printing most of our stuff in China. We still do a little bit in the U.S. But that allowed us the economics of it allowed us to go full color. And that's been just a huge boost because you can see the art better on a comic cover we print when it's in color. If you're trying to show what happened in Action Comics number 398's cover, a little reproduction in full color is going to be a whole lot more visible for readers than a black and white one. And it's been such a huge benefit to us. I'd say that was probably it. Now, the adjustment of getting used to, oh, well, we can print this thing and have it back in 2 weeks in the US versus, oh, we can print this overseas and have it back in 90 days. That was a big transition for us. But we rolled with it and got a good system working. The recent tariffs, thankfully, we are exempt from those, at least of now. Of course, with this administration, anything could change tonight.
In a minute. Yeah, it
But
depends on what they're
and
trying to
put us
do
out
at
of
any
business.
given time.
Yeah, yeah. But as it stands right now, we're exempt from those tariffs, so we didn't have to raise most of our cover prices. We did a couple on books because some cost of product materials are going up. But our magazines have stayed the same for now. I'm hoping we can maintain that at least through the end of this year, if not through next year. So
Technical question for you. Why did you qualify for the exemption? What were you doing that was
it's I don't want to get too far into it, but there's a law about freedom of speech and printed materials, things like periodicals
okay?
and
So
newspapers.
printed material periodicals are exempt because, the same thing, second class mail. Right.
Yeah, but stuff like, action figures, Funko Pop heads, things like that are not exempt, and they're getting slammed with tariffs
Slammed.
right now.
Yeah.
It's going to really hurt the comic shops because that's a big source of a lot of their income. And it's a precarious situation right now. These tariffs are just, hey, I don't want to get too political here, but I think they're just the dumbest thing any administration's ever done. It's shooting our economy in the foot. And so many businesses are struggling right now because of it and likely to go out of business if it doesn't get remedied soon. So, it's a fact of life. We cannot print full color publications in the US. With our small print runs, we would have to charge $20 for a magazine instead of 11. I don't think our customers are going to want to pay that. And I believe we would lose all our customers and go out of business. So we're kind of forced to print overseas to maintain the quality and the status of our publications that they are now. So, and the U.S. printers don't want generally our small print runs. They want big, giant, hundreds of
Yeah,
thousands
the
of copies.
economics work for them,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
scale as well.
yeah.
We do print on demand. I don't know if you've ever done that.
We've investigated that, and I requote our printing prices every single year in just about every available country, not just Asia, but the UK, Italy, France, Canada, and of course all the US printers. And with very rare exceptions, our particular products need to be printed overseas, or they're just not economically feasible to do.
Mhm.
So, but print on demand hasn't been a practical thing for us because the per unit cost, there's just no profit left unless you jack the cover price way, way up. We have not found a formula that works for us with print on demand. And it's too bad because we got a lot of out of print books that maybe we only printed, 1,000 or 2,000 copies initially, and they sold out 20 years ago. And I would love to put them back in print, but we couldn't sell another 1,000 copies to warrant a new print run. Whereas print on demand, conceivably that seems like that would be a good thing, but there's no profit in it, and we still have to pay our authors, all our contributors that worked on these books. We can't just go off and print them and keep all the money ourselves. So it's not just the printing cost. There's also freight involved,
Yeah,
and
royalties.
and storage also. If you print 100 copies and sell five, you've got to have somewhere to store those other 95 until they sell. So there's just, as a publisher, there's a lot of calculations that factor into my daily workload in addition to having fun doing a Jack Kirby magazine. So
Old story, right? Archie Comics actually used that model back in the day. I don't know if they still do. They would overprint by a significant
hmm.
amount, and then they would take the overprint, shove them into a warehouse, and then offer them for sale in the comic books. It was years before Archie Meets the Punisher sold out um,
Hmm.
completely. I don't think it's available
That's
anymore.
yeah, that's our print model also. We overprint. I will say, in the last two, three, well, since COVID especially, we have lowered the amount of copies that we overprint on things. We used to try to keep stuff in print my goal was 10 years to keep things in print, which a lot of publishers would just balk at that. But now I'm looking at 2 years is a good run. I know John Cook's Charlton Companion, which was nominated for an Eisner Award, and just one of the most amazing books we've ever published. Um, it it stayed in print for about 14 months, I think, before it sold out. But I'm not convinced that there's enough remaining audience for that book, unfortunately, to warrant a reprint of it. Then there's others. We did a book on Reed Crandall in hardcover was the initial book, and pre-orders on it were so low, I almost canceled it because people just did not pre-order it. But I went in and printed them, and lo and behold, was it within 6 months, it was sold out. We went back and we waited 3 years and then went back and printed a softcover version. And now that one is very close to selling out too. So, people out there listening, pre-order from publishers. That's the only way they know how many copies to set for their print run. And if you don't, you're probably going to get an unfortunate surprise when you're having to buy it at, 5 times cover price off of
Yeah.
eBay one day. And that's what happened. Things that happens all the time with our stuff. So get it while it's hot. That's be my advice for our customers. So,
I'm going to do a little history here. Roy's been working with you for quite a long time, Roy Thomas, right?
oh yeah.
How did you first get connected on this? I know that he appeared, Alter Ego appeared as a backup feature, reverse cover on that Jack Kirby comic collector or something, right?
Well, I did on Comic Book Artist magazine. Yeah,
Comic
that was our
artist.
second.
That's what it
That
was.
was the one John Cook spearheaded, Comic Book Artist.
Uh,
Well, I'm trying to remember, and this was a long time ago, and John and I have argued over how this actually happened, but I recall Roy got in touch with me after I started the Jack Kirby Collector, and I was like, wow, Roy Thomas is writing me a letter. Actually, it wasn't a letter, they were faxes back then. Roy used to fax ceaselessly. I don't know if he did that with you, but you would get these 20-page faxes running across your fax machine. And that was in the old days of the roll paper, that slick
yep.
stuff that would fade out, right?
I actually asked
And
him not to do that.
yeah,
So,
yes. Well, that was his way. And
yeah.
they were all handwritten faxes largely. But it was great. It was amazing. Wow, Roy Thomas is, sending me faxes. This is great. And so we corresponded and all. But then when John and I decided, okay, we're going to do a Jack Kirby collector, but for all the other artists. And John was going to do it. And John wanted to call it Comic Artist. And I wanted to call it Issue. And John said, no, that's the worst name ever because this magazine is not about the back issues. It's about the artists. Of course, I eventually got my name for a different magazine of ours used, but John was absolutely right. It was. Comic Book Artist was all about the artist. But uh, he says that I contacted Roy about, hey, do you want to resurrect Alter Ego in the back of that? I recall my memory is like says John contacted him. I don't know which one of us did, but I'm glad we did. So the back one fourth of each issue of the first 5 issues of Comic Artist was an Alter Ego flip side where Roy kind of resurrected the 60s fanzine that ran for what 10 issues, right? And that was in our second magazine, Comic Artist. From there, it was okay. Hey, Roy, do you want to expand this to a full magazine all its own? People seem to enjoy it, and Roy's like, sure, why not? So that was in 2000, I believe. 1998 was Comic Book Artist, and then in 2000 we spun Alter Ego's backside of Comic Artist into its own magazine, Alter Ego. And I just the new issue we got in. Let's see, what is that one? That's number 193. That's the one that just came in this week. Roy has already knocked down what's going in through number 199, and we're kicking around 200 ideas right now. And how old is Roy now? I'm forgetting. Is he 86?
83, something like that.
Is he 83? I thought let's see. I was thinking more like 85, 86.
Hold on, hold on, hold on.
I'd
It
have to
was,
look it up and see. It's kind
yeah.
of irrelevant because Roy is forever, 30 years old,
Mhm.
if as you know from being around him. He's still that young comics fan at heart, even though he's been through the ringer as a comics professional over and over and over throughout the decades. But he still has the heart of a 1960s comics fan, and it shows in his publication. Alter Ego is a great magazine for people our age and older that just really grew up on that stuff. And but yeah, it's been an amazing uh, wow. Let's see, 25, 26 years
25
worth,
years,
probably 27
27
years.
years.
Yeah. Yeah. And never a crossword with Roy. We've never had an actual argument. We've had a couple of little minor disagreements over the years and stuff. And we've respectfully expressed our opinions about Stanley and Jack Kirby to each other. We're not as far apart as you might think. Um, but we're certainly not eye to eye on the Lee Kirby debate, but we're close enough that we get along just fine. So,
Same story
um,
here. I've never
yeah,
really had any, you know, Roy and I have argued over a few things in the past, but it's always been, good natured, friendly,
yeah,
and
yeah. Roy's
never
Roy's
any
a
stress in the
consummate professional
relationship.
all the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will say that the one thing that we did argue about was bringing the Eternals into the Marvel Universe, which I thought and still think was a terrible idea. But
Yeah, well, so did
editorially,
Kirby. So,
yeah. So,
oh well, that's what happens when you create toys for another company. They're their toys, so they can do with them as they want after you leave. So,
well, John, we've got a few minutes left. What would you like to talk about that I haven't brought up yet? Just, you know,
wow. Two things. First, uh, I don't know which is, I think they're of equal importance, but first is our readers. Our readers, most of our competitors have fallen by the wayside over the years. And when I say competitors, it wasn't necessarily a direct head-to-head competition in most instances. I mean, we weren't directly competing with Comics Buyer's Guide.
yeah, there aren't
Uh,
that many fan magazines out there anymore.
No, there's just not. And everything, the advent of the internet kind of brought everything online, and people expected, the younger readers anyway, expected to get their comics news for free and their interviews for free and art galleries for free. And so, our business model allowed us, we work on a very thin dime here. Very, very small margins on everything. Nobody here is getting rich, least of all me. But we're getting rich in appreciation from our readers and enjoyment of what we do. So our readers are for 30 plus years now. We started in 1994, and I had no idea we would ever branch out beyond a little 16-page hand Xerox newsletter. There was no grand design to do that, but readers kind of caught on and got involved and sent us, contributions, art submissions, things like that. And it just kind of organically grew over time from one magazine to two to three. Then our first book was what Roy's All-Star Companion, Volume One. We tried our hand at books then. Um, Sold great. We were like, wow, let's do some books now. And it just kind of grew and grew from there as it has for 30 years now. Now we're not doing just comics. We're doing a Lego publication. We're doing all kinds of retro pop culture stuff as well, although comics is and always will be the core of what we do. But our readers have just stuck with us for so long, and they are so loyal. And from the recession in 2008 to COVID to this new bankruptcy that we're dealing with now, they have always stepped up to help us because they love what we do. And I think um, they see that there are genuine fans producing the material, even though most of our editors are comics professionals like Roy. Um, they sense that they are us and we are them. They appreciate the sincerity that goes into what we do and how we approach it from a fan's point of view, and that's what they enjoy reading. So that's the first thing. The other is the people that I get to work with on a day-to-day basis. There is no better group of people that I could have ever hoped to work with. And I had 9 to 5 jobs before doing this at agencies and some fine people. Okay, yeah, but nothing like this. We are all a team and we all work together. We all help each other. We all share interviews with each other. If, oh, I got this great piece of art that, John Coco, I got this great piece of art. Roy needs to use this instead of saving it for his own publication, for instance. Michael Uriar, who has since retired but was editing both Back Issue and Retro Fan for several years, he was always helpful for everybody, and we were all helpful for him. And it's just kind of this sort of group mentality that we 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 all, it's corny, but we all love each other. And even if, like, I'm not a huge horror fan, but I love what Peter Normanton is doing on that publication. I have such an admiration for it and a respect for what he does. Even if that genre isn't my favorite, I can admire the hard work he puts into it. And he puts just as much hard work into that as I put into the Jack Kirby Collector because I'm such a big Kirby fan. And that John Cook puts into all of his stuff because he's such an overall fan of every aspect of comics. So our readers are great. Our coworkers are great. That's what I want to make sure people know we never forget for a second. Two things. One, that it all started with Jack Kirby. I never forget that. But I never forget how hard all these people work and that they're all counting on me to make sure we can continue producing the stuff that they love to do and that our readers can continue receiving it. And so, I think I've got at least another 10 years doing this and hopefully more than that.
I hope so
Um,
too.
so, barring any crazy market condition changes and things like that, like we see from time to time. But we're going nowhere. So we've got a lot left to do. As long as we're able, we'll keep it up.
When you say you're going nowhere, that means that you're going forward.
Well, we're going somewhere. Yes,
Yes.
we're not going away. Let's put it that way. So
Alrighty. John, thank you so much for being here. Let's point people again to the website, twomorrows.com,
TWO
TWO, because there are two of you.
MORROWS. That's
Uh-huh.
right.
And I also want to encourage people who have enjoyed this interview to share it, to like it, to subscribe to the Heroic Voice YouTube channel. Um, let's do this again sometime, especially if you decide it's time to do a Heroic Publishing retrospective.
I would love to anytime. This has
Thank
been a
you.
lot of fun.
Alrighty.
Thanks, David.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks. You too.